Uh, okay. New day, a new reaction. I've seen this video a long time ago, and this is a pretty much a documentary of Warframe by the channel of No Clip video game documentaries. I remember them just being called No Clip. I don't remember the documentaries part in the end, but whatever. They added more to it. Fair enough. And and the reason why I'm making this video is because I thought about this the other day. I think it was yesterday. I'm pretty sure that I should look at the video of pretty much um of what really got people into kind of seeing Warframe a bit more different, from the way how it started up, the concepts, and some of the other things that they've done in the past. Even though this documentary is 6 years old, but I think no matter how old this is, I feel like this is still relevant to this day, even after years old, from the things that they mentioned. But anyway, let's get on with it. Get on with the video because from what I remember, this is a phenomenal documentary. 100,000, bro. That was a while back. I remember them being that small. Yeah, I think the last time I checked of the channel was probably around when they had, I think, less than no, it wasn't a less. It was, I think it was like a little more than 100,000 for sure. Yeah, that's how far back that was.
I still remember the first time I played Warframe.
Dude, I
I
would love
just
to get
treated
those
myself to
statues.
a launch day PlayStation 4, and during a break playing FIFA or Killzone Shadowfall or something, I wandered onto the PlayStation Store just to see what else was available.
Yeah,
And it was then
same.
that I came across this curious looking free to play game.
I wasn't quite sure what to make of Warframe, to be honest. I had no idea it was made by the studio responsible for one of my favorite games ever, Unreal Tournament. I had no idea that it was a game that Digital Extremes had been
Oh my
trying to
God,
release in
look at
some
that.
form or another for over a decade. And I certainly didn't realize that this curious little free to play game was the studio's last chance at survival.
Warframe's been out for 5 years now
The
on
way how it
Xbox
looks.
One, PlayStation 4, and of course PC. In fact, it spent most of its time on the PC in Steam's top 10.
I think this might have been after the star chart update. I'm confident because before, my God, dude, I I remember when the game first came out on the consoles, and I think I said this. I think I mentioned this before my other my other Warframe video of what was that reaction called? Warframe is a wake up call. I think I mentioned that the star chart, the way how it was before compared to how it is now, I got lost. Like I didn't know what to do or what to select because it was just, I don't know, like it wasn't the way how it was now. It was completely different.
Most concurrent
Maybe I
players
think they
chart.
show it.
But it's also a game that a lot of people know absolutely nothing about. So we thought, what better candidate for a no-clip retrospective than the remarkable story of Digital Extremes and Warframe. This story starts 3 decades ago in the Great White North.
3 decades ago. Wow. War stories.
Through grade 9 all the way through to the end of university, I always had in my head that I would do
Is that
games
Sinclair?
just in my spare
Or
time as a
no,
hobby. It
not
was always a
Sinclair.
hobby in my head. I wasn't getting into a real job in games, so I kind
Yes,
of put
him.
that out of my head. But yeah, I'd made games all throughout university. I went to university for mechanical engineering and
James.
expected to go into mechanical engineering. And one of the little games I was making through university, I got published in this little kind of magazine disc thing called Big Blue Disc that would be on, you'd see it on the
Wow.
magazine shelves. It would come out monthly. And
Dude, so old school. Look at that.
I was just looking around for something
1986.
to do with my game that I finished, which is kind of a cool little game. And I sent it to them, and they paid me my $1,200
Right.
for the rights to do that. And so I was amazed that I
They paid him $1,200, bro. Imagine $1,200 in the mid 80s, bro. That's probably like more than 5,000 or so dollars probably to this day. back then, probably. I mean, I don't know when exactly the dollar menu came out, but bro, that's just crazy, dude. Have you guys ever looked at the price of a double cheese?
Actually made a little bit of money from this tiny little game, and so that's kind of the first stepping stone to get it to the professional and actually money coming in.
What was the game?
It was called Legends of Murder. You can search it online and probably find
Legends
it. I think
of
it's on there
Murder.
somewhere.
Fantastic title.
And it actually works. I was just playing it a couple months ago.
Right.
You can download it somewhere, and it's yeah, it's funny little game. I still thought at that point it would be a hobby in that, and I thought it'd be fair.
I think they should not remake it, but it may be compatible with the newer tech. But I think they should have that game to be downloaded on their website. That'd be so cool.
Fantastic if I could make a little bit of extra income from that. And so as I was finishing university, I was a big fan of Star Trek at the time, and it was kind of, and then a game called Star Control had come out. I just loved this idea in my mind of combining those two things, and I ended up making this game called Solar Winds, which was just finishing up as I was graduating university. And right around that time, I knew this game was a little bit bigger, a little bit more interesting, a little bit more viable as a real product. And so I remember playing Hugo's House of Horrors, which was a shareware game at the time.
Oh, this
I
one,
actually
yeah.
physically wrote an actual letter to David Gray. I do believe his name is. I can't believe I remember that. And I sent the letter off to him. I asked, can people make money from shareware because you're giving it away for free? And he wrote back and he told me about CompuServe. It was a good online area where people discuss games and shareware and stuff like that. And he said, yeah, some people make a few bucks and some people make $1 million. And of course that, my mind exploded. And I think from there, that's where I got onto CompuServe, and I found out about Apogee and Epic Games. I met Mark Rain, and the first game ended up being published by Epic Mega Games at the time. I think I was making about $1,200 a month from Solar Winds, and I was like working on my next game. I was like, oh my god,
Just the
I need to go
generic
from
names is
$1,200 a
crazy.
month to $2,400 a month, so I can actually live reasonable on that. And so it was exciting times, and I just loved the work. And the game that came after that was Epic Pinball, and so as I was making, I was like, okay, this is good. This game is my best yet. It's going really well. And
Bro, let's be honest with you. I think the one pinball game, I think if you ask any, like maybe millennial to like maybe like late, well, I would say millennial to like maybe early, like really, really early Gen Z, I'm pretty sure if you ask them about Space Cadet Pinball, they'll absolutely have a throwback on that. Because anytime when I think of an old school pinball, I immediately go back to, what was it? To Windows, was it Windows XP? Was it XP? I'm pretty sure it was a Space Cadet.
so I was really quite excited about it, thinking, yeah, maybe I'll make more than $2,400 a month. Maybe I'll make $3,000. It's like in my mind, oh my God, $4,000 a month? That would be living in luxury. And of course it comes out, and it was a monster, like for individual, for one person making, it was a monster hit. And I just remember my first check was like $50,000. So it was a whole new world. And that was kind of the start of the upward climb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fantastic, making successful games in the past. Yeah.
By the time James had finished his marathon of work on Epic Pinball, he was pretty tired of making pinball games. But Epic Mega Games, the game's publisher, knew that a sequel would be wonderful business. James pushed back, saying he didn't have the creative energy to work on another pinball game. So Epic suggested that he hire some people to do the work for him. This was the foundation of Digital Extremes. And the first game for the team, Extreme Pinball, was another hit. While James's new team was working on pinball, he was taking his first steps into 3D game design. And it's through this that a decade-long collaboration with Epic would begin.
It explains why that Digital Extremes is viewed on practically the pioneership of online games. It makes a lot of sense now. I think the door just closed because it's so many outside. Headshot. Double kill.
Today we often associate this franchise with Epic Games, but the original games were born out of a tight collaboration between the two studios. Between the two, they were around 16 people working collaboratively on the project. During the development of Unreal, the Epic team travelled to London, Ontario to work on the game, while the team at Digital Extremes travelled to Raleigh, North Carolina, where Epic is still based, to work on UT99.
As intense
Was it online games or was it just multiplayer games? It might have been just like the arena shooters. I think that's what it was. Yeah, they're pioneers for arena shooters. Maybe online games at a certain point. But yeah, this is at the time of like LAN parties were a massive thing. You know, I'll be honest with you, man. Who's even having those now? You know.
intense as Unreal was, and hard, and really just trying to ship a game, Unreal Tournament was, I think, felt more creative and a little less pressure, but that allowed us to make even a better game, I think. At that point, so my programming contribution went down, and I think I focused more on the art and weapon. I can proudly say I think all the weapon designs are mine for the most part.
Then you just have all the weapons on you?
What are some of your favorite weapons from?
Oh, the flat cannon's always been my favorite. I was very happy with how that one turned out.
Yeah. Did you put the smiley face at the end
I
of
did.
the alt fire?
I did.
That's awesome.
Do you know this, I'm not sure if this story's ever been told. We were all in North Carolina, and we were coming back from lunch somewhere, and we walked past a church called the Redeemer. It's like, hey, that's a great name for the big guy. So,
Pilotable nuclear weapon.
Redeemer.
Yes, named after a church.
yes.
Great.
I know Cliff
That's
had a lot
awesome.
of input in the weapons as well, but we wanted something that was more than just basic shooting. Combining the alt fires to add an extra layer of skill on top. So we're always looking for a way to add that, you shoot the weapon in its basic form and you can do well, but if you have that extra skill and you can do the combos or whatever, that there's an extra layer of skill that's kind of built on top of the weapons. So that was definitely the
God,
intention,
it's so
as
windy
much
here,
as we
dude.
possibly could.
Do you have any favorite
Okay,
maps
just sitting
from
in the glass
that
window.
original 99 one?
Facing Worlds.
That's a very
Cedric's,
iconic map. Yeah.
map was definitely one of our favorites that we played in the
Yeah.
office. There's a lot of really good ones. I like Deck 16 was awesome. It was Nisha's.
I don't know much of the maps, but I know that that temple one in space. I know that's a very iconic map. I'm not too sure why exactly. I never played any of the Unreal games. I never really played any of them in general. But it's very interesting of how these games, how they were in the past, of just the adrenaline rush arena shooters, and it's kind of interesting how some of that is not exactly captured that much today, really. I don't know. I guess I don't really feel that as much right now. But I don't know. I guess maybe because I'm just really casual about a lot of shit, you know.
Map that was
But overall,
very memorable.
I can see why people enjoy
On
this.
Championship, pretty
There you
much
go. There's
everything. I
Sinclair.
worked on weapons and progression. I'm a programmer. Was how I got my job here. So I programmed weapons, I programmed game modes, I programmed bots, bombing run, like all those kind of things. I remember one time when we moved offices, we had to have an electrician come in, and he had to come in late. I was the only one in the office, so I let him in. And he said, so you make video games here? And I said, yeah. He's like, whoa, any video games I might have heard of? And I'm like, yeah, Unreal Tournament 2003. He said, oh yeah, I really wanted to like that Unreal Tournament 2003, but you replace a sniper rifle with that god-awful lightning gun. And I'm like, yep, that was me.
After UT99, the teams continued to collaborate,
Yep,
working on
me.
Unreal Championship for consoles and Unreal Tournament 2003. But by the time UT 2004 came around, collaborating remotely became much more difficult, as both studios had grown so much. It was
Yeah,
during
for
this
sure.
period that Epic and Digital Extremes almost merged, but the idea was scrapped once they realised the Canadian government would require a sizable tax payment up front. And so instead, like college roommates after the last day of class, Digital Extremes
They
and
split
Epic
ways.
Games went down their own different paths.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely understandable. I'll be honest with you. I think I would have done the same thing if I knew that the government would have won like a huge tax from it. I'd be like, yeah, no, fuck off. I think it would have been the same way. Yeah, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault at all. It's just No, just I think that I mean, who knows how much they wanted to take? Maybe they wanted to take like a flat like 30% or some shit. But I would be like, no, that's too much, especially for a company that's starting to thrive. No, that's way too much. Yep, Gears of
After the
War.
release of Unreal Tournament 3, Epic would go on to partner with Microsoft Studios to create the Gears of War franchise. And Digital Extremes had a big idea of their own, a sci-fi action MMO they were calling Dark Sector. They poured their creative energy into this project, hoping it would be the key to a new era for the studio. And in fact, it was.
The
But
art
instead
is
of
so
sending them
similar,
down the
dude.
path of
Even
creating an
even back
entirely
then.
new franchise for them to own, the demo kept securing them work-for-hire projects.
So yeah, the old DE that I worked at made some cool Unreal games with Epic, and then we hit the pitch circuit. Right,
Those
here's
old
our idea for
magazines,
games. You know, we
PC.
tried to make this crazy sci-fi.
Dude, how many of those are even around anymore? Was it EGM, Electric Gaming Monthly? Is that oh? It says Brazil on it, so I don't know. I mean, that'd be interesting. GTA Vice City, see it right there on the EGM on the top left. You even got PC Gamer, Next Generation, Computer Gaming. There's also PC Gamer in the bottom as well.
And then we hit
Man,
the
I
pitch
bet
circuit. Right,
was that
here's our idea for
game reactor, bro. All of these are shut down besides PC Gamer and PC Gamer is practically on his last legs. Let's be honest.
You know, we tried
It's
to make
almost
this
there.
crazy sci-fi game.
It's crazy, dude.
That was called Dark Sector. That wasn't the Dark
Maybe
Sector
some of them
that shipped.
rebranded.
And that was, I remember that was living out of a suitcase for 6 months, traveling Europe and West Coast with a tech demo and a cube PC. You walk in, you show this tech demo, and they say, "This is awesome. This is
Hope and
great.
a dream, man.
How would you like to make the sequel to this game instead?" Right? So, you know, that wasn't really. I mean, it was very creatively upsetting, and it kind of soul destroying because you're putting everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like, dude, it's like the reason why it's creatively, you know, just like it's creatively hurting is because you present them your work. This is your work and your imagination in your world, and they're like, okay, this is cool, but put that aside. How about you want to work on this other thing we have planned? You know, I'll be like, what the fuck? It's pretty much a soft saying like, yeah, this is garbage. Going to put it over here in the in the recycle bin. How about we put you in this instead? I would have been like, no, man, this is what I see. This is my vision. This is what I want to do. You know, and I guess and for what it and you know maybe it could be really successful, but and of course you know they want them to be on a sequel, which I'll be honest with you, not every game deserves a sequel. I've learned that lesson with Last of Us 2.
Into this, but it got us work. Publishers have their franchises, and they want to build on that. And so we did that. We did what we call work for hire. Work for hire is we're going to pay you a lot to grow an extreme amount to your breaking limit. So you have all these people to take
Look at
care
that
of
little
with their
ass fucking
families, their
Excalibur.
mortgages, and their hopes and dreams. We're going to pay you just enough to get to the end of the project.
doggy.
You better pray it runs out so you can get your royalties back.
If I look back on my career, it was probably my biggest personal mistake was to, you know, we had some good money coming in. We weren't that big. We were quite successful. But we had our eye on, like, you know, let's make something like the next Halo, like something huge, right? Because the games were at that point were getting bigger and bigger. And that was exciting to us. And we wanted to be, you know, AAA, huge, biggest games. And so we'd come up with a demo or pitching ideas to publishers looking to
Every game developer's dream.
some product. And it was definitely a challenge that went on with us for many, many years, looking for that product of our own. When possibly the better decision at the time would be to have been taken our own money and made our own small little product that was fully funded ourselves, that wasn't striving to be that big, massive blockbuster.
But that's your own money, it's more risky.
More risky, but then you have full control over it, because just when you're doing a work-for-hire project, I mean, it's their money, so you're doing what they want.
Is that Tolly right there?
You never know exactly what they
pillar?
want, or they don't know what they want. And if you look at our history and most independent studios' history, when they have full control, complete control over the product they're making, which often only comes if you're funding it yourself, you will make a better product.
Yeah.
For over a decade, digital
I think the reason why that is because, as I said before, it's, you know, it's their vision, is what they see, you know. It's their own thoughts, is their ideas, and, you know, it'll, I think it will be a better product, but sometimes, you know, I've seen some where it doesn't work out at all. But it doesn't mean that it won't always be the case. It could absolutely work out. Um, yeah.
extremes would work predominantly in the cutthroat world of work for hire. What many studios
Yeah.
do when they're in this situation is scale up for projects and then conduct widespread layoffs afterwards. But James was from the area, and Digital Extremes was the only studio in town. His employees had roots, families, friends, mortgage payments. So him and the team did anything they could to keep contracts coming through the door. What this meant was that their Dark Sector idea kept getting kicked down the road while the team worked to keep the lights on. The studio partnered with Toronto-based Groove Games on Unreal Engine shooter Pariah and its sequel of sorts, Warpath. They took a contract to help create the PlayStation 3 port of BioShock, all the while shipping around their Dark Sector game.
I'll be honest with you, man. Even though they did the PS3 version, bro, BioShock alone back then was phenomenal. I would like to do a playthrough of it, but at the same time, it's like I don't think I can, because I played through the game so much. I don't think I can actually play through it again. I think that's the problem. I love it, man. I love this game.
We had this idea, what would Metal Gear and like the Dark Crystal be if you put them together? So of course there would be like anime energy tentacles coming out of people's heads. There would be really cool robots, but the metal would be organic and changing. You know, we had a lot of ideas, science fiction that wasn't necessarily just like James Cameron science fiction. We wanted maybe some Frank Herbert science fiction. So we had these kind of ideas, and I went off and wrote a whole bunch of stuff about these characters, and the artists, you know, Mike Brennan designed these beautiful, kind of very interesting enemies, and him and Jeff, you know, worked on the original kind of.
I would have loved for them to put up a date to when these were like drawn. Maybe, I mean, maybe they can't really remember, but it would be awesome to see how old these are, because you can very much tell these are very early concepts of Warframe, or what led up to be Warframe.
And we went around and pitched it, and this was kind of when Halo was sort of a thing starting to emerge. But every publisher said no one likes sci-fi, and they won't sell consistently.
Man, they were wrong. They were fucking dead wrong about that, man. No one likes sci-fi, bro. It's like saying that nobody would have bought the Star Wars games early on. That's absolutely false. Man, do you have any idea how many people bought the Star Wars 3? Was a Sith? Was that what is it called? Revenge of the Sith or whatever? Man, that shit sold like crazy. That's a load right there, man. No one likes sci-fi. What are you talking about, man? Did people not remember playing what was it, Starfighter, or the other one where or there was what was the other one? Some of those other games. Like, come on, people like sci-fi. It's just a matter of, is it interesting? And Halo proved otherwise, you know?
So the Tenno, which is the good guys, send in our boy. Here he is, Hayden Tenno. Looking nice in his ancient Excalibur.
Even the logo is the same, dude. That's crazy.
All right, so there he is, and this is the perspective of our game. It's sort of an over-the-shoulder mixed third-person, first-person type control scheme. We've got on the left analog stick, we have move and strafe, like you might have in a game like Halo. And on the right stick, we've got look, aim. So we see the suit at all times, but we have essentially what is a first-person control scheme.
This
Back
is
then, you were really beholden to publishers to get your games out. There wasn't digital distribution, you know.
Absolutely. And you know what's even crazier is that the way how the game looked, this is whoever thought that 3 years after, because this was 2005, who would have thought that 3 years after, in 2008, there would be the infamous series or franchise called Dead Space, and would just take over, just completely take over the horror scene, third person, all that stuff back then, dude. Like, who would have ever thought? You know, it's crazy. This is before, yeah. This is before, like, yeah. This is before. I think Halo 2, probably, maybe. It might be shortly after Halo 2, probably. Um, yeah. And then there was what's the other one? Yeah, this is before Gears of War and all that stuff. So yeah.
You know, you needed to get your game onto a retail shelf, and to
Yeah,
do that
absolutely.
was really expensive, and there was no way for kind of independent developers to be able to foot that bill. You know, you have to manufacture a certain amount even to get onto store shelves, and you have to pay all of that up front, along with, you know, the licensing fees that come with that. And being an independent developer up until about, I'd say, 5 to 7 years ago was
Yeah. It was
really
pain in the
difficult.
ass. It was a
I
nightmare.
mean, you talk to any kind of mid-sized developer, even these days.
It was a nightmare because digital games wasn't exactly a phenomenon back then. It was all physical. And it wasn't until like maybe around 2008, 2009, I'm pretty sure, maybe a little bit maybe a little bit earlier than that. Just a little bit. That's when digital games kind of sort of took off a lot more, because I'm not too sure why. It could be because of maybe it could be because of the Xbox 360 and PS3, where if they, them saying, oh yeah, you could do all the, it's like you could buy the game and all that, or you could just, pay the premium. Well, on the 360, you use Microsoft points. It's like, oh, you could buy the Microsoft points, and you could use that to buy a game and digitally, and you wouldn't have to worry about the physical game. And maybe that's what really started it off. I mean, who really knows? I'm not too sure. If you know, put that in the comments, because I don't.
So I think it's
I think my dad's home.
and especially back then, it was a
Or about water.
huge challenge because the games were becoming bigger and bigger. And
Even to this day,
the
bigger and bigger.
mid-sized games, it was really even more hit or miss if they were to even gain any traction in retail.
As that runway
you can
was
see his
running
face.
out and I was getting desperate and we were getting chain yanked by publishers. You know, one publisher said, well, we don't like the hero, he's too feminine, can he have an eye patch? Like literally crazy things like that. It was getting so close to signing, but just
Too feminine?
dragging on and dragging on. So we did a pivot. We said, oh, it's gonna be, okay, those sci-fi stuff, fine, okay, so it's gonna be more like Resident Evil than it is gonna be like, Dark Crystal in space. So we kind of made these compromises in order to land the deal, and we did.
The Dark Sector that was
fantastic.
eventually released looks almost nothing like the original pitch video. They took
Yeah.
off the protagonist's mask. Instead of being a space soldier, he was now part of the CIA.
Yeah.
It played less like
Dark
Metal Gear
Sector.
and more like Resident Evil 4 or Gear.
You know what's crazy, man? I did not know for years that they made this game. I'll be 100% honest. I did not know for years that Digital Extremes made the game Dark Sector. I have this. I don't have it, but I have this game still on my Xbox profile. If I scroll all the way down, it is right there. It is right there.
Gears of War.
Maybe I'll show it
But
off
they did
screen.
keep the name Hayden Tenno, a term they'd use again in the future.
I'll show
Dark
it off
Sector
at the
received
end of the
above
video.
average reviews when it was launched in March of 2008, but it came out in a tough market as it was an incredibly popular time for third-person action games.
Flailed around for a while trying to find its footing and find what the actual
Oh,
gameplay
yeah,
was
Scott.
and how we
Yeah,
integrated
yeah.
the glaive with the gunplay and the cover system that was in existing games like Gears was inspiration, but we wanted to do something a
Absolutely,
little bit
man.
better, a little bit more fluid.
I mean, that's the difference between what the publisher at the time wanted with the game. They wanted something that was more grounded and
That's supposed to be
more,
Nyx?
kind of set in reality that people could relate to.
Yeah. It's so different compared to the original ideas. But it's crazy like how many of the assets are so similar to this day. Practically the same too. That's crazy, man.
Digital Extreme's Dark Sector project hadn't gone exactly the way they wanted to, but at the very least it had been competitive at market. Plus, the team had another game out the door.
They continued doing work for hire gigs. They developed the multiplayer for Bioshock 2 and
I'll be honest with you, man. I was so surprised. I was so surprised to learn that fact too. They did the Bioshock 2 multiplayer. Dude, I remember I did play a little bit of it. And I don't really have fond memories of it. Granted, because like not a lot of people played it, and it was pretty much in the dying phase, and it was very, very laggy. But dude, when I heard that they did this one, I'm like, dude, no wonder why this was such a good game. I mean, a good multiplayer. The campaign itself pretty garble, but I believe this is supposed to be Homefront.
Homefront. They designed The Darkness 2 for 2K and secured a contract.
The Darkness 2 as well. I was surprised that they did this one too. Because the Darkness 1 is, if you guys never played the Darkness or the franchise alone, play them. Absolutely play them. It's a great story and great voice acting, especially from the first game. The first game is very limiting because this is before like COD 4. I think this might have been like before COD 4 became popular with the whole sprinting and all that stuff. Well, technically that was in like Half-Life 2 and such. But it's just interesting that the games that these guys took part of, which I didn't even know, because one, I didn't even really bother, but it's just interesting that the games that they took part of, and how I wonder how different it would have been if it wasn't for them, because I do remember Homefront being a really good multiplayer, and I did enjoy it, but for the others, but for some of the others, I do question how it would have been without him, especially the Bioshock 2 one. The Bioshock 2, that one surprised me the most, really.
Contract to make the video game for an upcoming Star Trek movie. But the squeeze on mid-tier games was getting worse and worse for publishers. Rising development costs meant that the revenue required to make each of these games a financial success was rising with each year. Digital Extremes found themselves caught in the crossfire.
Well, I think a lot of publishers moved all that stuff internally,
well.
And you know, that mid-tier developer, you know, I think we saw the writing on the wall is those pitches and those things were harder to do, and the quality bar that the publisher required, and the risks they were willing to take they weren't willing to take them anymore. So it was like, okay.
Dude, I mean, if there's ever a moment in time where I can actually, like meet or something like that with DE, I would absolutely love it if they showed me a statue of Jackie from the Darkness 2 that they did. I would love to see a statue of him. Just seeing how underrated that the Darkness series was is, it's just crazy, man. Finding any, like, I don't know, man. I would think finding anything the Darkness related in terms of like statues or anything like that. Man, I don't even think there's any, really, because it was so niche. Like it wasn't even a popular franchise either, sadly.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to figure out something else.
You know, Star Trek's ramping down rather, and soon, you know, there won't be any more milestone payments coming in to keep the lights on. This other project that we had started that we thought was going to get greenlit, that publisher had a bad quarter and are now doing everything in-house. You know, like these are literally things happen.
It was a very challenging time, and it was definitely hard to get those, to work with a publisher to get those real, potentially high quality products funded, because there was so much at stake. Like, to compete, you need to put more money in them. And then at that time, we're looking at free to play, and we heard amazing things about some of the more, I mean, World of Tanks is the most perfect example. They did phenomenal.
Oh yeah, World of Tanks.
But it clearly wasn't like $100 million budget to ship that out the door. And we love the idea of the fact that, you know, you
World
can
of Tanks on the
ship
360,
smaller, and you've
so
seen
crazy.
this in a few other games, and then grow beyond there. So it really seemed really appealing to us, that concept where you could try something out, see if the fans like it, and then grow as needed.
You know, the inspiration was, can we make something small? I mean, back the clock up 2 years, that would have been an XBLA game, right? But XBLA didn't seem to be landing the hits that maybe independent developers like we were hoping it would. And so that seemed like, okay, well, here's another option.
What is
My
this
interest was not, you know, free to play, let's bilk the players, right? My interest was, well, the scope of that sounds like something we could do with how much we have left. And better work, because that's it.
Was it scary, the idea that, like, because you're not swimming in
completely.
capital?
It was our last, it was a Hail Mary. It was like, it really was.
How close to closing were you guys, or how close to bankruptcy?
Really close, really close. I can tell that story. It was pretty, it was super close. It was, we knew that this was our last chance, and we had a couple $1 million extra, like, to do this with. We studied all the games out there, a couple, like a game called Drakensang, which I really...
Imagine saying that as a company, because here's the thing, because by then they already have like a whole staff and everything. But just imagine a studio telling you that, like, yeah, we had a couple $1 million and we were so close to reach bankruptcy. I'd be like, dude, I'm thinking this as a mindset of like just individual, like just a small group. But no, by then they had a studio and all that stuff already, because by then they already did, what is it? By then they did BioShock, was a BioShock 2 multiplayer and probably the Darkness 2 and all that. So it's just crazy to see just how much even then they struggled back then and all that.
Enjoyed at the time, and World of Tanks, and was it Battlefield Heroes? I think had done all right. So we're looking at anything.
Yes, I remember this. I did play this.
Sustaining itself. I told Steve and the guys, you know, you got 12 months. That's it. There's like nothing but 12 months.
We had tried to make a version of Dark Sector multiple times. We had made this kind of weird MMO prototype using Unreal, and we had kind of servers and you could jump between them, and it was kind of starting to feel almost like, you know, it was very precursor. The original Planet Side was coming out, and we're like, oh man, and World War II Online, like people were starting to make these kind of action games, but with an MMO context. We were really attracted to that.
Steve had always thought of a Dark Sector sequel where we go back to the Space Ninja demo that we had done.
Yeah.
And he's thinking like a small space pirate raid. So we'd kind of do randomly generated ships. You'd raid these ships, get loot, and come back.
Perfect choice, by the way.
Of his, you know, he kind of thought of it as a small, maybe like PSN or Xbox Live game.
Got that lawnmower.
We just never really had the opportunity to make. So when we were thinking about going into the free-to-play, this seemed like a really good, small, tangible demo that we could make.
Who's that?
And it was, for us, it was like this thing we really loved that we really never got to execute on.
A few of us went to James and said, okay, we think we can do this really fast if it's this and it's small scope.
Yeah.
And we think that co-op is not as served as it gives us an opportunity not to be kind of going against the giants.
The team had a round of layoffs, but they were still 250 people large. Steve was put in charge of a small group, around a dozen people, who put together the demo for this new free-to-play game, taking ideas as early as the original 2000s Dark Sector MMO, and much of the gameplay and visuals from their failed 2005 pitch of Dark Sector. They put together a demo of their spaceship raiding game in just under 2 months. Then Stephen Meredith went back on the road to try and pitch this game to free-to-play publishers looking for any sort of cash injection to help them keep the lights on.
How this looks.
And we had the largest free-to-play publishers in the world, the richest. You know, I don't need to name them, but you can just like Google, who's the richest? Here they come. And they walked in.
Wow.
Said, oh, this is great. I can't believe this. What an exciting meeting. I'm so good. And in slow motion, and the record needle scratch because it was sci-fi.
Right.
And they just walked out.
As soon as they saw that it was PvE and sci-fi, it was, and we were like, what?
I mean, at that same time,
absolutely,
I remember one
man.
of those guys that came to the studio, they did the tour, they looked at what we've been building.
These are the people that are literally accepting anything that's coming across their table. They see this and they're just like, nah. Bro, that's a shot in the heart right there, man. you go back doing, you go back doing the original vision that you had from the very start of your, well, maybe not the very start, but at a point of this of your company, and you go to the biggest free to players, and you see the amount of them. I think I recognize two or three of them, but all of them, all of them said no. Bro, they literally messed out on a gold mine. They just didn't even know it. All they saw was the dirt on top and didn't even bother just to dig through and see all the gold in the bottom.
And his reaction
Ridiculous.
was interesting. It was, this is the best looking free-to-play game I've ever seen. You will fail.
Wow.
Dave and I just looked at each other. Oh, kill me now. So why
That's
are we going to
crazy.
fail? Well, because the game can't look this good and update as often as you need to build your community. And of course that was like branded on my ass, like frequent, fast updates. How are we gonna do this? So a lot of early tech in Warframe, like the procedural levels and that sort of stuff, completely geared to that kind of idea of frequent updating. Those publishers didn't bite. And so it was, can we make money before they
What a
end of the year?
sad,
And I was
sad
like, okay,
venture.
so 9 months to make a game.
When the team tried to make the original Dark Sector, the need to get a publisher influenced that game dramatically. But this time, Digital Extremes didn't
why
have
wouldn't
time
it?
to retool the game for publisher needs. And frankly, they
They did
didn't
it
want
themselves.
to. They knew what type of project they were making. A free-to-play Space Ninja game they were currently calling Lotus. But what they didn't know was whether or not this game would be enough to help save the company.
Yeah.
This project was a massive shot in the dark. Not only had the team
I was
never
gonna say
made a
that, shot in
free-to-play
the
game
dark.
before, but this game was going to be responsible for keeping a studio of 250 people afloat while they scrambled to look for more work for.
Damn, that's crazy, man. Like 250 people. That is not the number that I thought. I thought at least like 50, but 250. That's the reason why I can believe that when they said that they had, a couple million in the bank and they only had pretty much a year till it closes, and then they mentioned 250 employees. I see why now. I can see why, because the amount of payrolls that all of them have, for each week and all that, and how many hours are there? Yeah, that's too much. I can see why they only had a year.
Higher gigs. What actually transpired wouldn't only shock and surprise DE, but the entire video games world. In the next part in this series, we take a look at the remarkable story of Warframe. See you then.
It's only part 1, by the way. Part 2 where it gets really delicious. Part 2, man, that's when it gets really, really delicious. Yeah.
All right, so I'll get in position here and left.
I love his, like, just seeing this clip is just seeing, like, hearing Sinclair's description of what's going on. You could tell this man is so nervous. Like, nothing of what he's saying sounds like any sort of confidence or anything.
Trigger, and this is a contextual area where I can hang, jump up, drop down from to get the jump on enemies, to get into a better strategic position, to hide, and these are contextual areas in the level. Okay, hit left trigger up, and I hop up. And better get in here, and right trigger. Yeah, take that. Nice shadow kill there, and that's done.
Shadow
sneak
kill.
attack with the right trigger. Allows us to kill guards that are unaware of us. And of course, if he was aware of me,
Oh my
it would've
God.
been a much different situation. So I'm going to show you focus now, and that's talked about left trigger and right trigger.
Oh my God,
And each
just
stance also has a
hearing
focus,
this
and
is
that's
just
by
so
pressing
it's
both
just
triggers at
funny.
one time. It allows us to do something per stance, and in this case, allows us to
You
have
can
this sort of X-ray
see
vision.
through?
This is the
Oh,
stealth
okay.
thing, so to speak, sort of a Daredevil-esque view of the world. And we can see those glowing red dots. Those are enemies. They're last based on how long I focused for. And they've sent up a sentient machine to look for me because their buddy hasn't checked in. So they're a little suspicious here. Very nice.
I've always liked games that did that sort of thing. Not many
So the
do
thing
that.
that makes Hayden special, of course, is that he has a gift with these these sentient machines in that he can sort of mind meld or link with them, as we call it. And that's one of the stances that we use in the game.
I love that, man. It's just hearing the commentary of him saying all that. I'm just like, dude, isn't this supposed to be a presentation demo? Why does he sound so? He just sounds so nervous about it too. Just imagine. You know what? I think it shows like the real personality of like the game. This is like seeing like Sean Murray with No Man's Sky, of like how it was like in the beginning. Like it definitely was interesting the way how it was. Just hearing the nervousness and the uncertainty and all the other stuff. That's the exact vibe I get on this one with Sinclair. Oh god, it's just glorious. Well, anyway, can't wait to watch part 2. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. This is Wangcho928. I'll be streaming later on twitch.tv Wangcho928 on around, I think, maybe 7:30, maybe today, depending how it goes. Hopefully it'll be a little bit earlier, but I don't think it will be. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this part 1 of this documentary. I can't wait for part 2, because part 2, I know it's gonna be really, really glorious. For everything that they talk about. And you know what? Check out No Clip in the meantime, because I think I'll probably see the other thing for Warframe, and then that's really it. I'll probably watch from the No Clip channel. Anyway, have a good one and peace out.